How's it going, guys? It's Dan from WellSmart again. So I've actually been planning on putting out a video for about a week, but I'm sure, as you can tell by my voice, I've actually been a little bit sick. I got hit with the flu, and that kind of deterred me a little bit. So today I decided to do a recording instead of filming myself. I'm still kind of recovering, so it's probably best for everybody if you don't if you don't see my face right now. But this way you can still at least get the information that I wanna share with you, and you're not going to be distracted by my sick face. So in my previous videos, I talked and I focused more on the administrative side of personal finance. So those would be things like, opening the right accounts and the difference between a TFSA and a non-TFSA account. How to budget, how to kind of form a strategy to save money. And those are all really useful things. They're all really important to do. But the truth is that they're the easy part. If you follow a certain schedule, where in a certain program, where you try to spend less, try to budget as efficiently as possible, it's not very hard, to save $200, $300 a month at least. And most people do that. However, what most people don't do, or they don't know how to do, is they don't know what to do with that money. Best case scenario, they just keep it in there in cash, which I explained in my TFSA video, that you're still actually losing money, not through inflation there. Worst case scenario, they put it in investments that pretty much loses most of whatever they put in there. So my goal with WellSmart is to teach you guys how to make your own decisions and how to not have to rely on the financial industry to make these decisions for you, or at least if they do make the decisions for you, at least to get some input because you're armed with some facts and some knowledge. And in this industry, what you don't know will hurt you, so you do have to know quite a lot. But don't worry, it's actually pretty fun. So what I want to focus on today is I want to teach you the three main things that I looked for when I first started, with investing. The three things that I looked for in a stock, and kind of explain why those are important, and hopefully it will help you out. So the first thing that you need to realize is that there's thousands and thousands of companies out there that you can invest in, and some are good, some are bad, some are so-so, right? So how do you differentiate between them? How do you know where to start? Well, a very good starting point is to kind of stick to what you already know. And that doesn't necessarily mean what you already know in terms of finance, but what you already know in terms of your interests, in terms of your academic background, in terms of whatever you do at work. So to give an example, if you are a student in an environmental science program, or, I don't know, renewable energy engineering or something like that, or you work in the field, that's already knowledge that you have that, I myself don't have, and that most people don't. You have knowledge of the industry, you have knowledge of, kind of where that industry is heading. And that's actually very, very useful because, the best knowledge is the one that you get firsthand, through experience, not necessarily through reading articles, because, the media can be biased. They can have their own agendas depending on what source you read. So the best knowledge is the one that you already have because, you're working in it. You're working in the industry. You're studying that field. And to go back to my example of environmental science or renewable energy engineering or something like that, if you are in that field, or if you studied that in school, a very good bet for you to start would be to go on Google and type in Canadian green energy companies, or Canadian public green energy companies, because public means that they're traded on a stock exchange. And that way, what you've essentially done is, if you've eliminated a whole bunch of other companies that you don't really have any idea about, right? If you're in this program that I mentioned, then there will really be no point in you trying to learn how the textile industry works, for example. Like I don't even know exactly how that works, and so I try to stay away from it. And that way you're much less likely to make mistakes because at least you understand what it is they're investing in, and that's the main thing that people don't understand nowadays. They put their money in things and they do it because their advisor told them or their friend did it or the taxi driver told them, and they really have no idea what they put their money in. They don't really understand what the industry does. They don't really get how they make money. So the first piece of advice that I have is stick to what you already know. So don't try to learn about a new industry while you're at the beginning. Of course, as you progress and your skills with research get better, then by all means, right, you can kind of start diversifying. But at the beginning, just so you get a taste of it, stick to something that you already know, because that way you're just furthering your knowledge in a field and not learning something completely new. Warren Buffett, who I'm sure everybody knows who he is, but for those of you who don't, he's one of the, if not the most famous investor of our time. And he's a billionaire. He's actually regarded as the Oracle of Omaha, which is where he lives in the States. But the reason he's called the Oracle is because he's really, really good at predicting where the market's going, and he makes a lot of money in the process, right? And what Warren Buffett said was that, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's not a direct quote, but what he said was that he's not a genius. He's smart in circles, and he sticks around them. And that goes back to what I initially said, which is stick to what you know, right? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to overcomplicate yourself with investing in crazy new technologies that maybe only the people that actually develop them understand them. Stick to what you know. Simplicity is beauty in this industry, right? The more confusing the stock that you're investing in is, the more likely it is that you're actually going to lose money on it. So that's the first piece of advice that I have for you. The second one, once you, let's say, start determining what area you want to focus on, is you have to look for companies with constantly increasing revenues and profits. And that has to do more with the financial health of the company as opposed to what they actually do. Now, the difference between revenues and profits is this, and it may seem like a silly explanation to people who already know, but it's actually a very, very common misunderstanding. So revenues is what the company brings in. It's all the money that they bring in from whatever it is that they do. If you're investing in a lemonade stand, then the revenues would be every single dollar that they get for selling the lemonade. Their profits, however, are of course tied to their revenues, but their profits are what they get at the end of the day. So once they subtract all the costs of the lemons and the cups, and let's say they buy bottled water and the ice and the blender that they use, or the juicer for the lemons. So once they subtract all of those costs from whatever they make, those are the profits. So it's very possible for a company to have really high revenues, but have zero profits, or actually negative profits, and be losing money. And that's because even though they have they get a lot of money for their products, they also spend a lot of money to create those products. So a company like that, for example, would be Shopify. So for those of you who don't know what Shopify is, it's an Ottawa-based company, and essentially what they do is they provide they build websites for businesses, and they allow small businesses to sell their products through the platforms that they built for them. Now, Shopify is it's a great company. They're constantly increasing their revenues. However, because they have really high expenses as well, and they're hiring a lot of people, and they're growing, they're developing, they actually don't really have any profits yet. So they're constantly losing money. Now, of course, lots of people have invested in Shopify, maybe because they like the idea, maybe they see potential in where it's going, maybe they have a friend who works there, who knows. But in terms of its financial health right now, it's not the best company to invest in, simply because it's it's not making money. It's not profitable yet. So I would stick away from these. Sorry, I would stay away from these, at least at the beginning, until you kind of understand more about what really affects the stock of a price, both short term and long term. But towards the beginning, I would look for companies that are constantly increasing the amount of money that they take in, and also the amount of money that they actually keep. And the way you can do that is you can go, again, Google Finance, type in the name of the company, and you can very easily search up the information there. So that's the second tip that I have for you. The third is, again, it's a little more qualitative in nature. You don't have to do any math. You don't have to read any numbers. Well, there may be numbers in what you read, but it's not the main focus. The third point is you have to follow market trends and economic news in general. So that would be things like interest rates and if they're going up or down. So, for example, in the United States, the central bank is actually planning on raising interest rates this year. So that can have different effects on what companies are going to make money and what companies won't. Interest rates, they make the cost of money more expensive. So that means companies that, let's say, manufacturers, right, like Ford or GM, if they want to build a new model of car, well, they're going to need to borrow money from the bank. If the interest rates on the loan are higher, then that means they're going to pay more money to, in interest to get that money, right? So it could possibly cut away into their profits. Another example would be something like political unrest. So it would be things like Brexit, which I'm sure everybody's heard of. There's now turmoil in Italy and Greece and France, and really nobody knows what's going to happen, right? It could go either way, and those things could also affect how certain companies make money and where they operate and all that. Because if the government of a country changes and their policies change, then what the previous government allowed these companies to do may not necessarily be true anymore, right? So that could be good or bad for the company. And the third example would be Trump. Trump is, he was a huge market mover, especially when he got elected. The stock market went up after he got elected, mostly due to his protectionist policies, which basically means that he's trying to keep business within America. So all American companies, their stocks started going up because they saw more opportunities that way. But especially financial institutions, so banks, insurance companies, lenders, all those guys, their stocks went up because Trump is very, very big on deregulating the industry, which basically what it means is that he's going to cut back on the rules that they have to follow, right? So less rules means they can do more, questionable things, let's say, and that way they can bring in more profits. So their stocks went up, and they're still going to go up as long as Trump actually, keeps his promises, which it looks like he is so far. I'm not in any way supporting Trump. I'm just explaining why certain industries go up and down based on his policies in this case. So you also have to follow, market trends and economic news, and those are probably the easiest to do out of this whole these three steps. You can just go on Globe and Mail or just really open any newspaper and just read the news, and I'm going to guarantee you're probably going to find something about Trump in every couple of days at least. But those are the three main things that you need to look at when first starting out. You have to stick to what you know. So look at industries that you already have knowledge about, or that you have at least be passionate about the thing that you want to invest in. If you like 3D printing and you're a really big fan of it and you think it's got potential and all that, then great. Then start looking at companies that are involved with 3D printing. Maybe not necessarily the ones that actually 3D print, NASA rocket pieces, but companies that are somewhat involved with it. So the ones that, let's say, provide, I guess, the material that is used to 3D print, or the ones that build the printers, right? because if you do the research and through your research you realize that 3D printing, is going to be a big thing, then chances are that if 3D printing is going to be really popular, then the companies that build these 3D printers will also be very profitable in the future, right? So that's the first advice. The second one was look for constantly increasing revenues and profits. Those would be companies that are constantly growing, they're constantly profitable, they're constantly making more money, and it could be because their revenues are growing, or it also could be because their expenses are decreasing, which is often just as important. And the third thing is try to follow market trends and economic news. In the short term, this will affect the markets greatly. And although I focus on medium to long term investment in my personal strategy, so that would be 6 months and up. In the short term, for a beginner, it's very hard to kind of ignore the noise and to not get scared if your stock goes up and down really quickly. And so at least understanding why it's going up and down can help kind of ease your mind, right? And usually, these market trends and the economic news are the ones that affect how the stock moves in the short term. So that would be, within 3 months of when you bought it, for example. So yeah, try those 3 tips out, and good luck with your investing.